Subnautica is something of a hidden gem to me. Whilst I owned and played Natural Selection 2, I missed out on the original. And while I liked the concept and overall gameplay of Natural Selection 2, I never found it to be a game that I wanted to sink dozens of hours into. So when I saw rumblings about a small indie project from the same team, I was cautiously optimistic. And the more I saw, the more interested I became. And therein, coincidentally, lies the core appeal of Subnautica, the desire to explore. Not long after first hearing and seeing clips from Subnautica, I saw it coming soon to early access on Steam. Unlike many, I don't feel the instant burning hatred for early access, but it's undeniable that many people, including myself, have been burned by developers and projects that never made it over the line. Fast guy. So here we have a new side project from a fairly well regarded indie developer, a considerable departure from their previous product, with a lot of tech to work on to really sell it. In the interest of honesty, the first time I played Subnautica was after I'd pirated it. It was clever, engaging, at times intimidating, and it was overall very effective at what it set out to do. I really liked the game. I played through most of what was available, and I moved on. A year or so later, I came across it in a discussion and thought I'd check it out again. So once again, I pirated an updated version this time, and again I disappeared into this world for a few days, impressed by the improvements and the additions, and after getting to a completely arbitrary point in it, I had to stop. I had to admit to myself that this game was something special. Not long after that point, I bought it, and there's not been a moment since that I've regretted it. The process of the design and development of Subnautica is intriguing in and of itself. A small project intended to be completed within 18 months, it grew into its own animal over the intervening 3 years. A game that is in the process of getting its very own story DLC. The release stream for Subnautica had some interesting tidbits about its development, and fans of the game are likely aware of some of these more major changes. When I first played Subnautica, the majority of the terrain was able to be freely terraformed, but this was eventually cut for both performance and thematic reasons. There was a considerable point in time where the endgame seemed to point towards the use of the transfuser, a tool that had the player hybridize themselves with alien DNA found on the planet. The concept art is rife with ideas that made it through various levels of development, including vehicles, biomes, and creatures. It's often seen on the internet that people see behavior like this during development, and they assume incompetence, that a developer lacks vision or conviction. But like any other art, sometimes a churning, changing mercurial gloss over a solid base can birth something that stands above its contemporaries. Subnautica is a game with a clear and obvious goal. The player is stranded, and they must escape to survive. Hardly an original goal, but it's certainly a goal that players can identify with. The way that it goes beyond many of its competitors is in its execution. The first time I broke the surface and gazed out onto the open, empty landscape, I felt something special. The game itself is gorgeous, fantastical, and consistent, and our first forays into this world are relatively graceful and peaceful. But with every new piece of technology, every discovery you make, you're pushed further and further from your comfort zone, literally. A point that often gets discussed and argued over in forums is the game's flat-out refusal to give the player any sort of lethal option outside of a basic utility knife, and your ingenuity. The entire experience has you on the back foot, playing cat and mouse with leviathans and predators alike, and with this small design choice the game begins winding its tension ever tighter. The player is forced to behave in a non-confrontational manner, something atypical in most of the general gaming scene for this sort of genre. On the flip side of this, in most game modes, death isn't permanent, instead rolling the player back to the same state they were in last time they set foot in their Cyclops sub or a powered base. Personally, I think this method of negative repercussions fits well with the game's overarching theme of exploration, a way to keep that spirit of adventure kindled, without having a punishment so severe you'll get mad enough to walk away from the game. The narrative of the game is hardly a pressing issue, there for you to come across at your own leisure, despite the sense of urgency some of the details can instill in you. but with plenty of entirely optional entries, voice logs, lore, and whatnot to be found. But I found it intriguing, and the loose connections with natural selection are a fun facet without bludgeoning you over the head with "look at me, I'm related to that other thing that you like and know." Presents a story of survival and struggle, two threads that sit at the heart of many great stories and are a core part of the human condition. A game that does what it says on the tin. Exciting, fantastic, engaging, and a joy to play. One of the few games I can think of that I would consider close enough to perfect. Any changes I can think of would serve only to enhance and not necessarily improve it. Subnautica. Exquisitely designed, impressively executed, and exceeding expectations.